Hey guys, welcome to another episode today of 4Ps in a Pod. This is episode 5. You're joined here today with David Davis.
Andre Messam.
Anthony Messam.
Orville Davis.
And, we are gonna talk about something that we feel that is very important. There's gonna come a time in your journey that you're going to be required to make some type of logical trade-off. Okay, and it's not always going to be something that's going to feel good in the immediate and in the short term, but it will be something that'll pay off in the long term, right? You're going to have to identify these personal situations that require a sacrifice to move forward. It's said, if you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice, right? So, I take myself, for example, right? As you guys know, I started as a teller. I work in the banking industry, and I was part-time, not by choice. I worked 20 hours a week, making like $12 an hour, basically stuffing my face with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch, right? I didn't really have much of a margin to, save any money, but I understood that it was a foot in the door for the long-term goal. As I've previously also discussed, right, I had a desire to become a banker, okay? Now, I didn't have any support from management, higher-ups, so I needed to be creative, and I needed to also build my personal brand, right? And building that personal brand required sacrifice, right? So, at the time of when I was a teller and working part-time, I was also attending a community college, pursuing my associates, and I didn't really have a consistent school schedule. However, any time that there would be a neighboring branch that just needed a teller for a couple of hours, I jumped on the opportunity, right? And this wasn't overtime, it was just simply, filling up the remaining balance of 40 hours a week, right? And I also worked in Long Island. So one thing with Long Island that's very unique versus, any other, area with mass transit is that everything in Long Island is very far away from each other. So it costs a lot of money if you want to take a cab or even if you want to take a train, right? And the buses take forever, right? So, anytime I had an opportunity to go to a branch, I was essentially trading off my income for that day to pay for commuting, right? Why did I do that? Why does it make sense to do that? Well, I'll tell you why. As I previously discussed, internally, I didn't have the management that wanted to see me succeed. So I used that as an opportunity to go into every single branch, show my skills, right? Be the best teller I could be, punctual, balancing my drawer, making referrals to the other bankers, and making it where anytime they needed somebody, they called my managers to get me, right? David did an awesome job. We want to get him back, right? Additionally, I didn't keep to myself. I made it a point to speak to everyone in the branch, let them know what I want to do, ask for any advice in, how to be successful once I get into the role, because I was already convinced I was going into the role. It was just a matter of time, right? And again, going back to the sacrifice of it, in the immediate, no, it did not feel good to spend my paychecks on having to spend for a peak transit on Long Island Railroad and essentially maybe breaking even that day or not really making any money. However, the building of the personal brand was key, right? So unbeknownst to me, I walked into a branch and did what I would normally do, try to be the best that I could be, and there was a visit from senior management of that particular region. I blew them away, right? So they haven't really seen somebody excel or be so enthusiastic about their job, and this encouraged that senior manager to reach out to my senior manager and basically kind of push the envelope. Hey, what are you doing with David? I'm thinking about making them a banker, and that kind of forced my particular manager to not want to lose me, to make that promotion themselves, right? So again, it's about seeing past the short-term losses, right, for the long picture. So I want to pass it over to Tone at this point.
Hey, how you doing, guys? So the definition of sacrifice is the act of giving up something that you want to keep in order to get something that you actually want. When it comes to goals, there are many different things that you can give up for the greater good. A couple of those things is time, money, or the love of something. It may be a habit, hobbies, or just a way of life for you. Being able to give that up for something that you didn't have before. In order for the success, you have to give up something you never had in order to get something you never had. Something that I sacrifice is like all the materialistic things, like I've been driving hoopties for the longest. I've had a 96 Honda Accord. I had two of them. They were like $1,000, but it was good on gas. They're pretty much disposable, for the price of some belts, Louis Vuitton belts and purses, whatever you could relate to. But for the price of those items, I was driving a car that was fuel efficient, and it took me from job to job, and they're pretty cheap to fix. So I have a 2004 G35, and I had a motorcycle, the same motorcycle I had for, the past 5 years. There are things that I actually want. So I want a M5. And the other motorcycle that I want is a BMW S1000R. But I'm sacrificing those items, because I have a short-term goal of acquiring another property. So another sacrifice is that I'm trying to look better aesthetically, so I'm giving up a lot of foods. I'm giving up, my time to be in the gym. And these are just the sacrifices that you have to give up in order to get something that you never had. A financial advisor, Dave Ramsey, he said that in order to live like no one else later, you have to live like, and in order to live like no one else now, you have to live like no one else later.
Okay.
So my question to you is, what will you sacrifice?
Cool.
Yeah, wow. Those are some great points that you touch on now. Especially with the hoopties, I definitely found myself at a point where I would personally buy hoopties so that I would have enough money to pay for the lifestyle that I wanted to live. To go to the restaurants that I wanted to go to have the trips that I wanted to go on. And Dave, as you had mentioned, as far as going to other locations to fill in and, make yourself be known to management so that they would take you in. I found myself doing that personally with myself with the company that I work for. And, I would go to different locations regardless of how far it was. And believe me, they were far, whether it was Manhattan or all the way to Ronkonkoma in Long Island. And even further, even to the Hamptons. And, did it help me down the line? Yes, it did, because it allowed me to get a promotion because they knew that Orville was a good worker and he was willing to put in what needed to be done in order to achieve the goal. And, guys, sacrifices are key to success. I've never met anyone that hasn't had to, go through sacrifice in order to achieve something that they need to achieve. And like Tone had said, people sacrifice time, money, relationships. And I remember when I was 19 and I had to sacrifice my time of being a youth and like going out and hanging with my friends to be in a cold, rigorous junkyard, trying to work my ass off 15 hours a day, every day, just to, not just to be successful, but to also provide and protect the well-being of my family. You see, not many people knew, but our home was going into foreclosure, and I had to do what needed to be done in order to protect that from going down. So like I was in the junkyard just working my ass off, and I get so passionate when I talk about it because I was there, and it was cold, and a lot of times I thought about giving up. I had to reflect back on what was important to me. Who did I need to protect? And if I didn't do this, who would do this? I need to make sure that everybody was going to be great. And many people go through their own sacrifices, and in whatever way it helped shape them in order for them to become the person that they are. And I'm not saying that any sacrifice is better than the other, but me personally, I prefer to take the sacrifice that doesn't burn so much, and but I can't stress how important enough it is to go through a sacrifice, because I was doing some research on like what it took to become successful, and I saw that many people have said that in order to reach a new plateau, you need to give up something that was at a lower level, that was holding you back. And I had mentioned that people sacrifice time, money, and in relationships, but what people forget about, and which I think is the most important, is your mindset. You see, so a lot of people don't figure that they can get rid of their mindset or their beliefs, but sometimes that is what's holding you back from becoming successful or achieving your goals. And I find that this can help you go further in life than any of the other sacrifices that you could possibly give up. Now, my question to you guys, my question to you guys and my question to the listeners is, if you're ever stuck in a situation of a mindset of lack, what are you gonna do, right? What I ask for you to do is this, right? Drop that mindset, drop that belief of being in a state of lack, or being in a state of thinking that you're not good enough, and change it to believe that you could do something good within yourself. You have the power within you, and that's really all it takes, guys.
Absolutely. Sacrifice, I knew what sacrifice is. I know the importance of sacrifice, but sacrifice didn't really dawn on me until January 2017. In September 2016, we're all first-born Americans, so we know that our parents struggled in Jamaica. But September 2016, I went to see my grandmother in Jamaica. She wasn't doing very well. I was out there for a couple of days. Kids were in school. But just me being in the area, walking around and seeing these young, elementary school kids walking on the side of the road with no sidewalks, and seeing these cars come around these bends going, full speed. And like, these kids don't have any type of safety. They don't have school bus dropping them off. It wasn't until January 2017 when I was in the gym with my mother, and we were at Planet Fitness by Jamaica Hospital off the Van Wyck, and I saw the sun. They have big windows there, and I just see the sun rise, and I'm here working out with my mother, and I'm really looking and reflecting on the neighborhood that I'm living in the neighborhood that I live in, from being young to where I am now, to reflect on with the environment that my mother grew up in, and the things that she gave up, the sacrifices that she made to provide a better lifestyle for Anthony and I and my other siblings. The sacrifices that your parents have made as well to provide a better lifestyle for you guys. And it wasn't until then where I really, it dawned on me, and it's like, I have to, like Anthony's quote, live like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow, that I really need to grind and be focused and have my head on my shoulders. I need to have my ambition, because if my mother can give up leaving her friends, leaving her family, and just taking a leap of faith and making that sacrifice to aim and pursue something better for us, what's my excuse? I'm already on a higher level than what my mother had. And if my mother can bring, and not just my mother, but my parents as a whole, if my mother and father can provide a plateau for us and give us such an elevation in life, what's our excuse? What's my excuse? What's my brother's excuse or my sister's excuse not to succeed? So that's the sacrifice that really dawned on me and has had the biggest impact in my life, is my parents.
Wow. Yeah, I think, my takeaways, and I think what the listeners can really take away from what you said, Tone, just being humble, right? Sometimes you have to go through the struggle of, the hoopty cars and being conservative, not going out every weekend with your friends. It's not always fun to not go out to the club or to the events with your friends, right? But if you have this dream, you have to fight for it. You have to sacrifice for it, right? Even additionally, in terms of, if you want to look a certain way, hey, we know it's great. You want to have that donut, you want to have that slice of pizza, but you have to sacrifice that short-term urge for the long-term either health or the way that you look, right? And then just also additionally, right, just always remember there was someone before you, whether it's your parents, whether it's our ancestors, right, that sacrificed a lot for us to try to move that torch forward, right? So in those times of stress, where you just think you're dealing with the most and it's so difficult, there was someone before you that probably endured the same difficulty,
Or even
maybe
more.
right, 10 times more. And think about these things when you're taking the sacrifice and you're going through that struggle to try to push you forward. We truly hope that you guys found value in this message today. And again, if you found value, please, refer us to a like-minded friend of yours. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a great one.
Thank you.